Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new load that we've never tested before, and it is a stout one at that. I hope that we get some nasty results from it. This gun has tended to like this style of shell, so we'll see what happens. I've got some high hopes for it, and we've got 2 chokes to get an idea for a starting point today, how these are going to pattern. So hopefully everything works out the way that I expect it to, or at least hope it does anyway. Before the shells I've got today, I brought out some of these. The Winchester Super X buckshot loads, but these ones are a 12 gauge, 3.5 inch, 18 pellet load of double-aught at about 1200 feet per second. We've tested a couple different 3.5 inch buckshot loads, like the Federal Copper Plated, the Remington Express shells, and we've even tried some Super X 3.5 inch 4-buck shells, but never the Super X 3.5 inch double-aught. So this is a pretty stout loading for sure. I bet it's not going to be nice in the recoil department either. These are about $3 to $3.50 a shell, so definitely not the cheapest either, but we'll see what they can do since we've got a gun combo that likes 3.5 inch double-aught buck. As for that setup, I brought out my Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag. It's got a 28 inch barrel on it, and if you don't know, these 835s are an overboard shotgun, so even though it's a 12 gauge, the inside bore diameter is bored over to a 10 gauge spec, and the chokes also follow what 10 gauge choke numbers typically run. But from our testing so far, this gun really likes a lot of different 3.5 inch buckshot loads. So hopefully the 2 chokes we've got work out well with the Super X. But speaking of our 2 chokes, I've got these 2. These are both just your regular flush screw-in chokes, nothing fancy about them, but we've got a regular full choke and what is essentially an extra full. The silver choke is a Carlson's flush replacement choke. It's a full, which is a 727 constriction, and the black choke is a factory Mossberg choke, but this is technically what Mossberg calls the turkey full. It's actually an extra full. It sits right at a 710 constriction, so a little bit of difference between these two. It's essentially a full and an extra full. We'll try it and see what happens. Even though we're talking extra full with the black choke, it's a 710 constriction, which is roughly modified-ish from a standard 12 gauge bore, so we're not getting crazy with the constriction itself, but compared to bore diameter, we'll see what we get, and if these shells prefer a little tighter choke with the extra full or not. So for today's test, I've got 2 targets set up side by side at 40 yards with the chrono and templates we can lay up over our results. We'll start with the regular 727 full choke, then we'll move over and run a shell through the 710 turkey full, which is just an extra full, and we'll see what the difference is and get a starting point. That way we can work into the fancier, more aftermarket style chokes, like your Kicks Buck Kicker, your Pattern Master Black Mambas, that sort of stuff. So let's get you guys a view of those 2 targets. Start with the full, go to the extra full, and see what we get with the Super X 3.5 inch 18 pellet double-aught loads. Okay, so for the velocities we got out of those 2 shots, we have a boss claim of 1200. Our first shot through the full choke was 1190, so very close to that claim. And our second shot through the extra full gave us 1185, so 5 feet per second difference. Seems pretty consistent, right around the area just shy of 1200. So we're pretty much there with what we should be seeing. Sometimes the overbore can play with velocities just a little bit, but still just shy of 1200 for an 18 pellet loaded double-aught is plenty good enough. All right, so here we are down at our 40-yard targets side by side, and we definitely have 2 little bit different results here. On the left, we have our 727 full choke. On the right, we have our 710 extra full choke that Mossberg technically calls their turkey full, and 2 clearly different results. The obvious winning pattern is over on the left with the regular 727 full choke, and it seems like these shells are not a massive fan of a little bit more constriction, like we saw over on the right with the 710. Now that isn't overly surprising. This is an 18 pellet load of double-aught, and although 710 on its own is not a massive amount of constriction, at the end of an overboard 835, it is an extra full choke in relation to bore size. But both of these chokes have shown numerous very nice buckshot patterns across the board with 2 3/4, 3 inch, and 3.5 inch buckshot. So I figured we'd start here with the flush chokes and see what we get before we move into the fancier aftermarket chokes. And now we may have an idea that these are going to prefer a little bit more open of a constriction. Starting over here on the left with our 727 full choke, pattern might have favored a little bit to the right, and although I felt good about the shot, it always could have been me pulling it a little bit. These are not a pleasant shell to shoot at all, so if you don't like recoil impulse, these aren't the loading for you. But we've got a pretty nice even spread of pellets going on here. Maybe one little flyer over off the left there, but everything else is pretty evenly spread right to the right of the white dot. I did measure, we're looking at 14 inches tall by 23 inches wide, and that is farthest 2 points top to bottom and left to right. I usually say anything sub 20 inches at 40 yards is a nice buckshot pattern, and once you start getting down below 15 inches is when you really start getting pretty impressive. I mean, we're kind of skirting right around those numbers, so it averages out kind of right in the very nice performance realm, and I would agree that's a perfectly adequate buckshot pattern. That's going to certainly do the job at 40 yards for whatever you'd want to use it for. But now moving over to our 710 extra full, definitely start getting a little bit splotchy in the pattern. We've kind of got a group up above the white dot, another group to the left of it that's a little bit more of a vertical string with a couple pellets at the bottom. So not exactly a very even spread, and that is pretty much looking like too much choke constriction. Starts to blow the pattern open, gets a little bit splotchy, and yeah, that's what we've got going on here. And for whatever reason out there in the field, I didn't mention that it is 29 inches tall by 30 3/4 inches wide. So much more broad of a spread as well. Definitely all over the place and not nearly as ideal as what the full choke was. So definitely not the perfect choke combination or constriction for these shells. But let's throw up some actual templates on these two, get a side-by-side view of what they look like in some actual real-life scenarios, because that'll tell us a little more than just a blank sheet of paper. First up, we have our deer template. This is the full choke pattern, and obviously dead deer at 40 yards, no question about it. Most of the pellets hit the deer right through the vitals or shoulder area. Might have had just a couple of them clip the edge. There's kind of one right at the front of his chest and a couple more just behind the template up there at the very top as well. But everything else is right where you want it to be at. So do you need a 3.5 inch shell for a deer hunt? No, definitely not. You don't have to deal with the price and recoil behind them, but if you don't mind running a heavy shell with a lot of recoil, you see the pattern you'd get, and there's not going to be very many deer that make it through that for sure. And moving that template to our extra full choke pattern, same story. Yes, it would be a dead deer, but this is not really a pattern that I would want to run in a deer hunt. We've kind of got a big hole right around our white dot area. We've got some a little bit above in the top end of our vitals, and then obviously we've got a handful of them a little bit farther back, kind of where I would rather not have them be. So good enough to deer hunt with, technically, yeah, but not the ideal combination, especially when compared to our full choke. Next up, we have our coyote template. We're back on the full choke pattern again. Obviously, 3.5 inch double aught is probably not very many people's choice for predator hunt and load, but if you were in a deer stand or something and had a coyote come by, this is the pattern you'd be looking at, and not a very nice day for the coyote for sure. They ain't making it through that. So if you had the opportunity at a coyote or something of that sort, then you've definitely got the pattern to do it out to 40 yards, and you may even push it a little farther than that as well, because you have the handful extra pellets in the 3.5 inch shell to still hit them with a few out at 50-55 yards or so, I would imagine. So plenty good enough for a coyote with the full choke. And now moving that over to our extra full choke pattern. Pretty much same story we saw with the deer. Good enough to do the job. That would be a dead coyote, but not the prettiest pattern. Definitely not the preferable pattern between these two, but still technically good enough to do the job. And for you guys that may not be hunters and may not have a good reference on body sizes of animals, here is a regulation 18x30 torso cutout. Obviously, we're not talking about 40-yard home defense scenarios here, but this will give you guys a reference point as well. And I did center this template up with the actual pattern since it is smaller and narrower, so you can see just how good it actually is. And clearly, two-legged creature capable even out at longer ranges like this. And comparing that now to our extra full choke, which actually was decently centered up, it's just way more splotchy. I still wouldn't want to take a chance and stand in front of it myself, that's for sure, but way less ideal than what the full choke gave us. And here are the two little base wad gas seal pieces sitting under the pellets in those shells. They don't have any kind of full length wad or nothing. They're unplated, but they are buffered and do have these sitting under the pellets. Nothing special to see here, but they are in the shell, and I happened to find them in the grass here on the range, so I figured I'd show them to you overall. All right, well, what do we think about these two results right here? We definitely have a clear winner with the regular full choke over what the extra full, or technically what Mossberg calls the turkey full choke is. The little more open constriction, I definitely think is the way to go with these. Not entirely surprising considering it's 18 pellets a double lot being pushed through that choke. So it's a big load. It may need a little more extra breathing room to actually perform like it's supposed to. And now that we've got a good idea on what it does through two just regular flush style chokes, we can run them through a few different aftermarket or fancier chokes as well. Kicks buck kicker choke, Pattern Master Black Mamba, stuff like that, and see what they do. Those are also a couple different constrictions, so we'll see how they handle these shells. But that is a very nice pattern that we got with that full choke. Nothing to really complain about there. It's kind of right in that sweet spot. It's not screaming tight necessarily, but it's not blown all over the place. Really no major flyers, except maybe that one that's a little bit farther over to that one side, but nothing major overall. It's the clear winner, and if we can continue to get good patterns like that through some other chokes, then these are going to be a very solid performing shell. They're not nice to shoot in the recoil department, but if we get good performance out of them and you don't mind shooting 3.5-inch shells, then these may very well be a solid loading. And we've already seen good performances with other buckshot through both of these chokes, so I figured this would be a good test to see what they would do, at least to get us a starting point, even though an extra full may not have been the best idea just in general in the first place, but we had to see what it would do nonetheless. But let me know all your thoughts down below. Is this about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of those Super X 3.5-inch double lot loads, and if so, what kind of results have you seen? Are either one of these a combination you would run, or are you kind of like me where, yeah, that's a nice pattern, but you're just not going to have any kind of need to run a 3.5-inch shell when a 3-inch does the job just fine? And what other combos do you want to see us run these shells through that you think might be a good performer? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see you all in the next one.